Our city clerk, Pat Gable, will now take the roll. Albright?
Present.
Arnold? Here. Clark?
Present.
Gray?
Present.
Motive?
Present.
Reed?
Here.
Rolke?
Present.
All present. If you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight's meeting has been noticed in accordance with state and local statutes, with state statutes and local ordinances, and I am now looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Rolke will second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, great. We move on now to correspondence and communications. Has anyone signed up to speak tonight? No one has signed up. So we will move on to the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Gray moves to approve the consent agenda.
Alder Motive will second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the consent agenda has been approved, and now we're going to move on to the first item on the agenda under new business. The first item is to consider an update to Resolution 1121, the emergency order, and you may remember that back in September, on the 7th of September, we declared a state of emergency, and we required face coverings and started a testing vaccination policy. Recently, in the last few weeks, thankfully, we're seeing a decline in the number of COVID cases in our county, and it looks like, fingers crossed, that COVID is waning. So we discussed at our meeting 2 weeks ago to change the emergency order, and what we did was concerning the face coverings under section 1 of the resolution, we are now encouraging people to wear them, but this is no longer required. Under section 2, concerning testing and vaccinations, those are now suspended and no longer required. We will use Zoom technology to hold public meetings. And the declaration remains in effect, and the mayor is authorized to make additional emergency orders if needed. And all of this will expire on Monday, May 16th, unless modified by further resolution of the Common Council. So that is what we are going to be voting on tonight. Anyone have any questions before I ask for a motion? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion regarding this update.
Alder Gray moves to approve the amended version of resolution number 3-22, including the amendment that Mayor Arnold signed, amendment number 18-21.
Alder Motive will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the update to the resolution. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, resolution passes. The next item on the agenda is to consider mayoral appointments to the Planning Commission, the Senior Citizens Advisory, and the Tourism Board. Alder Albright has been on the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, but due to scheduling conflicts, it's been difficult for her to attend. And she has expressed interest in serving on the Plan Commission. And so we're going to swap. And I'm going to serve on the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, and she will begin serving on the Plan Commission. I believe you already attended a meeting. That's right. Okay. And we also need to reappoint on the Tourism Commission, John Walcott, J.D. Milborn, Lisa Famularo, Patty Walker, whose terms expire in December of each year. So we need to reappoint them. And so I am looking for a motion to approve these appointments.
Alder Rolke will move to approve mayoral appointments to the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, Plan Commission, and Tourism Commission.
Reed seconds.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve these appointments. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. Now we are going to move on to task order 2022-02, water quality trading assistance. And this was something that we got some information about last week regarding the wastewater treatment facility and some of the projects they have planned.
Jason Levy is available.
Oh, Jason's here. Okay. Oh, good. Sorry, Jason. I didn't see you. Jason, would you like to maybe just give us a little bit of information about this particular agenda item?
I think we kind of covered this last time at how, but really what it kind of amounts to is an annual contract that we have just to kind of service the water quality contracts that you have with the city. There's, I believe there's there's 3 contracts that you currently have. This is a little less than what it's historically been just because projects are implemented now, so it's more of an ongoing maintenance and just invoice approval at the end of the year. So we do have some hours associated with this. This is an hourly contract, so we only bill the time that we're needed. It's just an estimate of cost. What we found is I think we've been able to get most of the work done working with the county since this process has been in place. Everybody's getting a little more familiar with it, so it's getting a little more efficient. So this would take us through the end of the year for services associated with these water quality trading agreements that we have in place right now. So any questions, I'm happy to answer, and I believe we do have Dave Arnott from our company on here that can help also answer anything related to wastewater if anybody has anything.
Does anyone have any questions for Jason? Okay. In that case, I'm looking for a motion to approve this task order. Oh, and yes, that's right. I'm looking for the motion. Go ahead.
Alder Gray moves to approve task order 2022-02, the water quality trading assistance.
Alder Albright can second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the task order 2022. Is there any further discussion? In that case, we will do a roll call on this item.
Clark?
Aye.
Gray?
Aye.
Motive? Aye. Reed? Aye. Roki?
Aye.
Albright? Aye. Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much. And now we're going to move on to number 4 on the agenda, which is to consider task order 2022-03, Waterloo and Meister Park Life Station replacement. And I believe, Jason, that you talked with us about this at the Committee of the Whole 2 weeks ago. Do you want to give us a little brief overview?
Yeah, so again, this is related to the capital improvement plan for the wastewater utility. There are 2 lift stations at those 2 locations, respectively, both Waterloo Street and Farm Street intersection, and Meister lift station by the river. And those 2 lift stations are about 50 to 60 years old. They're fairly outdated. They've had some upgrades, minor upgrades years ago for some full compliant issues, but there's some bigger issues with them. There's capacity issues, reliability issues, age of pumps, age of equipment, things going on there that ultimately we're looking at updating. Currently, the one thing that we do want to add is a gas-powered generator. We've been adding gas-powered generators to lift station replacements for a few years now at the city. That is a requirement that we have some redundancy backup for power outages and storm events. And so this task order will cover the design and bidding of this. So it'll basically get us through the full design, submittal and approval at the DNR, and then the bidding out to get pricing for your consideration. As far as the schedule on this, I believe we are looking at this being completed this year as well. We would be bidding it this year with approvals and then ultimately start construction in early 2023. I guess the capital plan that we usually set forth in these larger projects has the design 1 year with the construction kind of the following year, just due to the timelines to get these things designed and permitted. So, but I just want to kind of make sure everybody understood this is 2 lift stations. It's more efficient to combine them from the standpoint of designing and bidding, because we only need 1 set of bid documents, 1 set of specifications. So we are trying to do this efficiently as we can to get these 2 replaced. So any questions about the task order?
Alder Reed.
Reed has a very simple question. So does the $67,450, does that include what we think will be the cost of the actual stations themselves, or this is just the cost for all of the design work that goes into them?
Yeah, this task order is for the design engineering services. So we will be developing a construction cost as we put these documents together, as we go out and collect the field information and make sure that we're designing the new systems and upgrading what we need to. So we have some budgetary costs right now for construction in the capital improvement plan, but we really don't have or know that exact number per lift station. So, but this is just for the engineering service side of it.
Thank you, I had been confused.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, then I am looking for a motion.
Alder Rolke moves to approve task order 2022-03 Waterloo and Meister Park lift station replacement.
Alder Motive will second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve this task order. Is there any further discussion? In that case, we will, did you have anything, Amy? Or no? Okay. In that case, we will do a roll call on this item also.
Clark?
Aye.
Gray?
Aye.
Motive? Aye. Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Albright? Aye. Motion carries.
Great. Okay, now we are going to move on to number 5, which is to consider the task order 2022-05, the WWTF biosolids drying study. And we got quite a bit of information on this, had a pretty good discussion at our last meeting. Would you like to give us a little Reader's Digest version of this, Jason?
Yeah, so again, if you recall from the last discussion, we talked about the sludge issue down at the plant and the potential to dewater the sludge further so we can increase the capacity of the storage with existing facilities. And I think there was a fair amount of discussion last time, a little bit about the need and the equipment and contracting out. And so I know Katie had kind of jumped in to help me out because my knowledge is pretty limited when it comes to the actual sludge side of the treatment process. So I did bring Dave Arnott from our company along as well. He's obviously much more versed in talking about that. So, but in a nutshell, the sludge is still very high liquid content and is not able to be stacked very high. So we're looking at new technology to dramatically reduce the water content, so it becomes more of a solid that we can store and stack a little higher in the building, and that gives us some more flexibility with finding fields to spread on, makes the sludge more, I guess, attractive, if you will, to farmers. They're more willing to accept it if it's dewatered further than it currently is. So there's a few things at play here. The study is really just looking at certain technologies of manufacturing of those technologies that have improved since we have done, I think there was a sludge study that looked at a lot of different options back maybe 10 years ago, I believe it was. And I think since then the technologies have improved to the point and we've narrowed it down to one particular drying method that we want to get some more detail on, make sure that we can retrofit it into the existing plant, get some specifications and approvals together by the DNR. So I think I'm over the tips of my skis a little bit here, so I guess if anybody has any questions, Dave's here as well to help kind of give some more in-depth information about it if you need.
Does anybody?
This is Dave. Jason,
go ahead.
And council, I would just add that this report will serve as a basis for any design project going forward. So the DNR requires a study such as this before they approve any design. Now, this is not for design, but if there is a desire by the city in the future to actually make a change, they want to see that the city has conducted a study looking at the alternatives and the costs and the non-economic factors. So that this study basically is what is required by the DNR. This is only the first step. The second step, if this is determined to be feasible, which we think something really feasible will come out of this, the second step would be design. That would be a separate task order, and then submittal to the DNR. And then the DNR is going to want to see a study like this to back up and support the city's direction.
Thank you. Does anyone have any further questions about the study, the proposed study? Oh, Kyle.
I just wanted to add that at the end of the task order, Katie from the wastewater treatment plant has included some costs for hauling or landfilling of sludge, and included two scenarios with actual numbers from last year. Scenario one would have been if we could use our approved field sites, but our vehicle wouldn't be available. That would have cost $34,656. And then if our farm fields weren't available and we would have to landfill, with the hauling and the disposal fees, that would have cost between $94,000 and $103,000. So those are pretty expensive propositions if we would have to go those routes.
Okay. So if nobody has any further questions, oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
No, I was.
oh, okay, you're just
I'd
getting
like
ready
to-
to vote.
I
Okay,
am.
good. Then I am looking for a motion.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve task order 2022-05.
Alder Albright can second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve task order 2022-05. Are there any further questions or discussion? Then we'll do a roll call on this one also.
Gray?
Aye.
Motive?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Albright?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you very much. And now we are moving on to number 6, which is to consider Recreation Department fundraising for park improvements. And at our last meeting, I believe it was our last meeting, Amy Jo Myers, who, as you all know, is the Columbus Recreation Department person, gave us some information about some projects that sound pretty exciting to me. And especially the pickleball, which I guess is quite a thing these days. And she would like to have us consider the possibility of them doing some fundraising. I don't believe Amy Jo is with us tonight. I don't think she's available. Does anybody have any questions about what the rec department is asking?
So, Mayor Arnold, I was actually at the rec meeting, so I can maybe
good.
pose some questions, because she showed me, so basically they're plastic, fit together, I don't know, flooring, for lack of a better word, and it's actually pretty cool. Yeah, and so basically they just dig it out and put some matting down, and they put this flooring down, and it's pretty awesome.
And I think all that we are really being asked to approve is their ability to do the fundraising.
Right.
They're not asking us for any money, which
Right,
makes it even
exactly.
sweeter. So I guess I am, unless anybody has any questions for Shelley, I'm looking for a motion to approve the fundraising.
Reed will move to approve the fundraising for park amenities as listed in the packet.
Alder Rolke will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the Recreation Department fundraising. And since we're not spending any money, we don't need to do a roll call. So all those in favor, are there any further questions? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. Okay, so going on to number 7, we're to consider the Columbus Area Aquatic Center annual membership fees, something that we have discussed in the past. It would involve increasing the resident rate. Whoa, wait a minute. I'm reading this now, and I'm wondering if I'm reading it right. Oh, I see. Never mind. I thought it said from $20 to $200, and I see I read that all wrong. So they want to increase the resident rates $20 from $200 to $220, non-resident rates from $225 to $245 for the pool. Individual memberships would go from $90 to $100, and non-resident rates would go from $100 to $110, and then there are couple passes. Those would go from $150, only a $5 raise there, to $155. Same for the non-residents rates, from $160 to $165. And I think Amy Jo had told us when we last heard from her that rates have not been raised in quite a long time. I think it's been since 2011. So does anybody have any questions or concerns about this before we go to the vote? Okay, in that case, I am looking for a motion.
Alder Albright can make a motion. Where am I at now? To approve the CAC annual membership fees.
Alder Rolke will second.
So it has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions, any further discussion? We don't need to do a roll call on this, do we? Okay. So in that case, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to number 8. That is, where is my number 8? Thought it was right here in my packet. Anyway, it is to consider compensation for elected officials. There we go. Thank you. Again, too many papers. So we talked about how at our last meeting that alders and the mayor haven't had increases since 2001, so that's more than 20 years. And we discussed the possibility of increasing the compensation. I would like to note that anybody currently serving on city council will not be able to receive increased compensation during their term and can only receive increased pay if they are reelected to another term. And even though the adjustments may have a relatively minor impact on the budget, it will be important to plan any compensation changes to either coincide with a future budget year or make the changes during 2022, but identify expenditures or accounts that can be reduced to offset any changes. And the rate of pay, there's an update on here from the 15th of March, which is today. The recommendation is to increase the compensation for the alders and mayor becoming effective in the next terms for each office. The rate of pay would go from $250 a month for an alder to $350 a month, and the mayor's rate of pay would go from $750 a month to $850 a month, and none of these increases can be accepted during the current term of office. Although the council has flexibility to choose when these rates will become effective for those beginning new terms. So that's what we're going to be voting on. And
I have a question.
I am looking for questions. Alder Motif.
So I want to clarify the beginning of this. So we have 3 people who are running unopposed coming up to our incumbents. Will their new pay start in April of 2022, or if they get reelected in April of 2023?
So
2024, I'm sorry.
if they're reelected in April, they will be beginning new terms and they would be eligible to receive that compensation. The council can choose to pick a date in the future, but essentially if the people that are running to be reelected to incumbents can't accept the raise this year, they really shouldn't accept it until the 2024 election. And so, there's still an opportunity for write-in candidates to contest them. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that they are elected, but that there is some flexibility on the council's part to set up exactly how the compensation would be structured and timed.
I would like to request consideration of one of 2 options.
Having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry. I'm requesting consideration of one or 2 options. One option is to have those who are coming up for reelection recuse themselves from voting on this currently, as they will have a benefit from this potentially at the next election. The other is to just wait to the following election to begin this for all.
Alder Gray already intended to abstain from voting. I would like to point out that that would be an individual alder's option and shouldn't be imposed upon them by another alder, but that was my intention.
It was also my intention to abstain from voting tonight.
And so what was your second suggestion, is to just not decide tonight, to table this and?
No, I think we should decide tonight, but then it wouldn't start until the following election.
So you're talking 2023 instead of 2022? Okay. Yes, Alder.
Oh, no. Yeah, I was just assuming it would start in 2022. It would still be after the, election had proceeded, possibly to be implemented in May.
Okay, so I think that's actually how we had written this, and so your feeling is you'd rather see the raise go in effect for the affected council members in May after the election, correct, of this year?
Yes.
So next month, okay. So we have a couple of different opinions here. Does anyone else want to weigh in?
I actually don't have an opinion. I guess to be honest, I was expecting it would probably take effect in May too. But, it doesn't matter to me either way.
I'm fine with that since both of the people who are affected have volunteered to recuse themselves from the
Okay.
vote.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Michael Clark, you want to weigh in on this? Even though it's not going to affect you in the tiniest bit.
No, they're just, comfortable just start voting.
Okay. In that case, I will look for a motion.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve raised compensation for elected officials beginning May 2022.
Alder Albright will second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the proposed compensation for elected officials effective May of 2022. Is there any further discussion? And we will then do a roll call on this one.
Okay, so Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Roki,
I'm
Abstain.
abstaining.
Albright,
Aye.
Clark,
No.
Gray.
I abstain.
So the motion carries 3-1 with 2 abstentions. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Moving on now to number 9. Consider contracting with McMahon Engineers and Architects, operational and compensation. And this is something that we talked about at our last meeting. Kyle, is this something you'd like to kind of weigh in on here?
Sure. So this is sort of the culmination of a long period of discussion and planning that we've had. This is an offshoot of our DPW study that we had done last year. And really, we identified some of the things we wanted to work on were compensation concerns, improving workflow and workload, and looking for any opportunities that we could gain some efficiencies and effectiveness throughout the city operations, with the goal really being to improve the service that the customers receive internally and externally throughout the city's operations. We did publish the RFP and we received some responses. The response that we recommended be approved is from McMahon Associates Incorporated. Henry Veliker from the organization is here with us tonight if there are any questions. We felt that the RFP that they submitted had the lowest cost, which was a benefit, although not our primary objective, but that it also had the most comprehensive approach to the evaluation that we were looking for. So that came out as the staff recommendation, and that was moved forward by the committee of the whole.
So the representative is here?
Yes, Henry Veliker.
Oh,
is,
okay. Okay.
Right there in case there are any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
I actually do.
Okay.
So when you're doing this, so do you do any kind of interviewing with the employees to see what they think about things?
There's a little button with a sound waves coming out of a face. I think there's a red tag by it. Oh, okay.
Thank you. Well, first off, good evening, Council. Yes, of course, we would want to do that. We typically would do the mayor, council, and the department heads. But I would recommend going down into the organization and doing all employees. And we've built in some time to do that. It helps because the employees have some input into the process, and I think you'll find that they'll have more buy-in when you get to the point, if you're going to consider some recommendations to implement them. And the employees are very astute. They understand their work, and they can be very helpful in helping me understand and my colleagues at McMahon kind of what's in the big universe of things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? You've come all this way, it seems like we are.
Well, no, I'd just like to say that if you do approve this, we really appreciate your confidence in us, and we look forward to getting going.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
In that case, I am looking for a motion to contract with McMahon Engineers, Architects.
Alder Motif would like to make a motion to approve the contract for an operational and compensation study with McMahon and Associates.
And Alder Albright can second that.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the contract with McMahon Engineers and Architects. Is there any discussion? Okay. We'll do a roll call on this one then.
Reed,
Aye.
Roki,
Aye.
Albright,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, I just misplaced my agenda again. I think the next item on the agenda is to, thank you, too many papers, is to consider and take action on the claims in the amount of $1,044,055.64. So I am looking for a motion.
Alder Albright can make a motion to approve $1,044,055.64.
Alder Motif will second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the claims, and we'll do a roll call.
Roki,
Aye.
Albright,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
motion carries.
Great. So now we have moved on to reports of the city officers. And Kyle, I'll let you start off.
All right, thank you. Just a couple updates. 2 weeks ago, we had the CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant, public information meeting for the dredging project. That's going to be starting here in the next couple months. That was held at the Senior Center. We had a good turnout. Alder Albright attended, and there were several residents. Rupert Milky did a really good job of kind of explaining the project and the phasing and what was going to be accomplished in what areas. We have full sets of plans that are available right now, and if anyone has any remaining questions but couldn't attend, I would suggest they contact Jerry at Public Works. They have a copy of those plans, and you can see the area that they're going to be working, and you'll also start to see in the summer months a lot of that equipment being staged as they go through that dredging project. We also had the final stormwater listening session last week, and that was held at the high school. We had several residents attend that meeting as well. There was a lot of good questions and comments that we were able to incorporate. One of them will be bringing forward at the committee of the whole. And I think in general, the input and engagement that we've had over this whole process has been sort of remarkable. I think it's something that is fairly unique and you don't see all the time. So I'm just very happy that the public has continued to comment and try to provide feedback so that we can make this better. And I would encourage anyone that has questions remaining to contact their alder or anyone on the stormwater subcommittee, and we'll try to get the answer for you. And so, yeah, I just want to thank everyone that's been participating in these events. We also today right in this room, had the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Insurance Company. They came to provide some training for DPW staff. And if you're on Facebook, I think they actually have some pictures of the training. And so we got a little bit of publicity that way. Because we're with the League Insurance, they provided this training. It had to do with setting priorities and kind of competing priorities. And they're planning some additional training in the coming months, as well as some training for department heads. Also in front of you, you'll also see the League 101 postcard. That's really good training. I think some of you have taken advantage of that in the past. They left that with the dates for the coming year. And so as we get into the next cycle of newly elected officials, just encouraging people to consider going, even if you've been there before. I think it's probably worthwhile to go again. You'll pick up something new almost every time. And then finally, speaking of the new class of alders that will be electing here in the coming months, planning has already started for the new council orientation that we do annually. And so if anyone has any suggestions for topics or additional information they would like covered in that session, please let me know, or the mayor know, or council president know, and we'll try to incorporate that into the sessions. I know based on some feedback, we're already looking at doing it a little bit differently than we have in the past, and maybe expanding it in some areas and changing the format slightly. So just trying to make it as useful as possible for all the elected officials and give the most information that's beneficial. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to echo what Kyle said about the stormwater utility meetings and listening sessions. What I went away with was not only a whole lot of really good information about what this is going to mean, but I was so impressed with the positive comments that we had, even when citizens maybe disagreed with what the information that we were presenting. Everyone was so polite and respectful, and I just really appreciate that. And I also want to acknowledge all the work that the committee did, the Stormwater Utility Committee, Alders Albright and Motif, and City Administrator Ellefson and Jason Letha. It was really great, so thanks very much. Last week was pretty exciting for the city of Columbus. We had both our boys basketball team and girls basketball team from the high school participate in the playoffs, and they had excellent seasons. And it's always exciting when small town sports do well. Everybody gets jazzed up. Also, the musical, we were just talking about that before the meeting started, was so good. The high school musical, which also included kids from the elementary and the middle school, was The Sound of Music. Personally, I'm not a huge musical fan, but I loved it. I just thought they did such a great job, and I just want to shout out to everybody who was involved with it. The Good Vibes Candy Shop downtown on James Street, block down the hill from the Four Corners, is having a ribbon cutting ceremony to celebrate their sort of grand opening, although they've been open for a while, and they are really good. That's going to be this Saturday, March 19th. I think the ribbon cutting is at 11:30 and the grand opening is at noon. So if you're in the neighborhood, or even if you're not, make a plan and stop on down. It's really fun to see all the new businesses opening up downtown. In May, we will be appointing members for the various boards, commissions, and committees. And this is an opportunity, if you're a citizen and you'd like to get a little more involved in local government, or find out, what does the Tourism Commission do? What's the Planning Commission all about? Go to the city website, and on the menu under Government, you will find a listing for all the different boards, commissions, committees. It will describe them, and if you are interested, you can contact Pat Gable at City Hall. I believe there is a form on the website that you can fill out and express your interest, and that goes to me eventually. And we're always looking for citizens who might want to participate, so check it out and then let me know. Our first April meeting will be on a Monday night. That's the 4th, because the spring election is on April 5th, and that will be school board, county board, and city council. I have been talking with City Clerk Pat Gable about the fact that we have at the front door of City Hall a drop box, but just want to alert everyone that you may no longer use that for your absentee ballots. So I'm actually just going to read this to you to make sure I get it all correct. Due to the recent court decision regarding absentee ballot drop boxes, voters are no longer allowed to return their absentee ballots via the use of drop boxes, which is what we have on our front door here. So that's no longer something that you can use if you have an absentee ballot. Options that are available for returning your absentee ballot: you can mail it back. That's the recommended way. You do want to make sure you mail it at least a week before Election Day. You may hand deliver it to the municipal clerk during regular office hours. You cannot give your ballot to someone else to give to the clerk. That is not allowed. You have to return it in person. On Election Day, you may return your own ballot to the polling place no later than 8 o'clock. You cannot, as I said before, return someone else's ballot for them, regardless of your relationship to the voter. And you cannot return them by email or fax, not that I think anybody ever tries to do that. And of course, they have to be at the polls on Election Day by 8 o'clock or they won't be counted. If you have any questions about this, please call Pat Gable. She will set you straight. She has all the information, and this is just, it's so important because I think people may have gotten in the habit of just dropping off their ballot. You can't do that anymore. You must come in, give it to a person, and it has to be your ballot. So that is it for me for tonight. And so I'm now looking for a motion to adjourn.
Alder Albright will make a motion to adjourn.
Gray seconds.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.
So I. Good evening, everyone. I have 7:21 p.m. Today is Tuesday, March 15th. I'd like to welcome everyone to the City of Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole. And with that, if our city clerk, Pat Gable, could take the roll call.
Albright,
Here.
Arnold, Clark,
Present.
Gray,
Present.
Motive,
Present.
Reed,
Here.
Roki,
Present.
all present.
Thank you. And this meeting was properly noticed, so next up is to approve the agenda. If there are no alterations or discussion, take a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Alder Motive will second.
I have a motion from Arnold and a second from Motive. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you. Next up is correspondence and communications. Do we have anyone that wanted to speak for? No. Okay, perfect. Then moving on, in your packets, you will find the department reports from the DPW, the fire department, the library, Lifestar, the police department, and the treasurer. Were there any questions, comments, or concerns on any of those? Okay. Then moving right along. Next up is to consider the resolution to terminate TID 3 that we've spoken about in the past before. This would be the resolution that would actually terminate the TID. Did Matt or Kyle, did you want to give us more info? Matt? Go ahead, Matt.
Sure, fairly, the items in your packet, I guess, are fairly self-explanatory. They're kind of the boilerplate forms that you get from DOR to close out a TIF district. Just want to remind council that at the February 16th meeting, we started the process to call the bond for TIF 3. And as part of the analysis completed by Ellers, it showed that we could close out TIF 3 early. So as part of that process, we have to go through and approve this resolution and submit the form that's in the packet. We chose to have it on the March 15th, April 4th deadline for approval due to we have 1 year from the date of termination on the resolution to complete the audit to basically determine the final TIF 3 payments that would need to be made to the various entities, including the other taxing entities. So we thought by delaying it till the 15th, April 4th, that made some sense just to buy a couple weeks, because typically speaking, our auditors are in usually like the last week in February. So buying some extra time we thought was worth having this time frame. So with that, I'll have any questions about this process.
Does anybody have any questions for Matt? Seeing none, is everyone okay with moving this forward to the next regular?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. And then let's see, next up is Matt is here for this as well. Consider the dam farm leases and located off Tower Drive.
So we recently purchased the property on Tower Drive. Historically, Dam Farms has farmed that. They had a previous lease with the previous landowners. With no immediate plans for 2022, staff wanted to explore having a lease with the Dam Farms, who had farmed this previously. We reached out, they were interested, they've reviewed the lease. It's essentially our the kind of framework that we've used for other leases. So we reached out, and he's okay with the terms, and I wanted to bring it to council for consideration. Any questions?
Thank you, Matt. Did anyone have any questions?
And Matt, this does mean that the community garden will be able to stay where it is for now. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
So, if you look at the map, which is the last page, is Exhibit A, notice it doesn't go all the way up to Tower Drive.
Right.
We are actually working on something with the community garden for that northern section of the map. Basically where they're at today.
Okay, thank you.
Looking out there.
Great.
Thank you so much. Did anyone else have any?
Thank you for that question.
Go ahead, Sheena.
Yeah, I'm feeling very comfortable with what I'm seeing. I don't see anything about, automatic, reauthorization or anything like that. It looks like it simply ends, as of this coming December.
Well, it's a year-to-year lease, and if we do not give notice, or they do not give notice by May 1st, then basically the next year automatically renews. It's similar to the leases we had with Hyman Farms and with Hine Farms. Okay?
So we need to let them know by May then?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Reed. Did anyone else have any? Do you have anything else, Mayor Arnold?
No, that's it.
All right, is everyone comfortable moving this forward for the next regular meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Looks great. Thank you again, Matt. Next up is to consider the application for Lot 6 site plan in Columbus Commerce Center. And I'm guessing we have Matt here for that as well.
That's correct. So at Plan Commission on Thursday night, we received this application from the applicant. As you're aware, we've gone through a process with these properties. They've rezoned the properties to R4, and then we've also amended 11414 to allow multifamilies to have multifamily projects that would have more than one principal building on a lot of record. One of the requirements of having more than one principal multifamily building on a lot of record would be to submit the site plans as required by 7815 subsection D number 2, which is, if you look in our code, that is the details of what needs to be in a site plan. So we've received an application that meets the minimum requirements for that section, and Plan Commission's reviewed it and recommended approval. The one thing I did want to note that is still being worked through on Lot 6 is there's an access easement that is on the north side of the parcel that will need to be relocated. This gives us access to a lift station that is on an adjacent parcel. There are 3 alternatives that have been proposed. The developer's willing to consider all of them, is what he's expressed via email. This is something that most likely our city attorney will have to draft up some sort of new easement language that would be recorded with the county that would be relocated. But at this time, the easement should be able to be relocated relatively easily. Also, please note that this does not exempt them from any of the other requirements under 7815, so they do need to still submit a grading plan, lighting plan, landscaping plan, which staff needs to approve in the future as well. So there's many other things that need to be, approved before development would occur. Is there any questions on Lot 6?
Anybody have any? Go ahead, Sarah.
I do have a question. I have concern about the easement not being settled yet. What if it comes and it changes how they have to have the buildings on the site?
Well, this is to approve them being able to have multiple buildings on the site, not the specific site plans.
Okay, but, would that change that in any way?
Well, so in theory, the applicant could leave the easement where it's at and just move the buildings and probably still, looking at the site plan, there's room with the setbacks and other easements on the south side of the lot. But they could theoretically move the building if needed. So if we did not relocate it, I think there's options in that regard. What you see in the site plan is relocating it closer to the northern property line. That is something that Jason Leaf has started to look at. There are concerns with potential slope up there, and then also drainage, or not drainage, wetlands that may be impacted. We've also talked about having the easement run down the middle of the drive aisle, and then at the back of building B, then it would turn and then head out to the lift station. And then on lot 5 of Commerce Center, in between the two ponds, we talked about potentially having it relocated over there and coming directly off of lot 5. So there are 3 options that the developer is open to that staff needs to finalize the viability and what the preference is for this project.
Thank you very much, Matt. I'd just like to remind everyone this has nothing to do with the easement or the site plan or anything of that nature. This is solely giving permission for multiple buildings. What the exact plans are, how it is, where the easement is, that is up for future discussion, not what we're talking about at all tonight. With that being said, anyone else have any more questions? Is everyone okay allowing multiple buildings on these 2 lots?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Then we will move that forward to the next regular meeting. Thank you so much, Matt. Let's see here. Oh, and you're finally off the hook, Matt. Next up is to consider the updated service agreement with LPI to publish the commotion. We have Kim Lang via Zoom here tonight. There we are. Would you like to give us some info on that, Kim?
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. We've had a long-term relationship with Liturgic Publishing Incorporated, LPI. They've published the Senior Center newsletter for many years, and we transitioned to this publication about 5 years ago. Nothing's really changed in the contract. The reason behind the contract is for both their benefit and ours to have the ability to plan ahead. They do advertising, which pays for the entirety of our publication, and they want to be able to do that and plan for that each year. The publication itself has been really successful for the Senior Center, the library, the rec department, as well as other, the Chamber of Commerce and other city departments. We, we utilize this to have one place for all of our activities, events, and programs and everything we have to offer in Columbus.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kim. Did anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns? This, of course, does not incur any cost or anything. It's a great thing. Everybody's okay moving forward? Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
I just think that, especially since we don't have a newspaper anymore, the commotion is so important, and they really do a nice job. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
And Alder Reed, did you?
Oh, thank you. No, I agree. They provide a very important service for our town, our city. Just wondering, under the agreement, where the provider must give a membership list by occupation and a vendor list. I'm wondering, is that something that actually is done?
No, we do provide them with a list of new businesses in town and businesses in the surrounding areas. They use that list to sell advertising for the commotion. So we don't really give out a membership list because that's not something that we do. We do, however, again, provide them with lists of new organizations or new businesses in the area that they can contact and ask if they'd be interested in advertising in the commotion.
Thank you, sounds reasonable.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have any? Everybody is okay moving this forward then?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Kim.
Thank you, and have a good night.
You too. And then next up is to consider the amendment to the stormwater utility. Did you want to talk to us about that, Kyle?
Yeah, just a very brief amendment. This, again, came directly out of the comments and conversation from the listening session. And a resident basically approached the listening session and wanted to know, you're talking about all these protections for the ratepayers and the rate freeze. Well, how simple would it be for the next council to just simply change those, eliminate them, get rid of them, and do something that wasn't the intent of this council? And then further suggested that maybe a supermajority set up to change any of those items in the ordinance would be something that would give just that extra level of protection. And so that's what you have in front of you, is something that would require any changes to that chapter to have 5 out of 6 alders approve it. And in that way, you couldn't have, one election really sway the future of those protections that we're promising people right now. So I think it does offer additional protection. I think it's a good idea, and it, I believe, matches the intent that this council is trying to put into the ordinance. So I think it's worth considering.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. I agree. I think it protects it on both sides, both for the residents and not being able to increase rates in the future unjustly, and for it not to be able to be dissolved or turned into something it shouldn't be, that we didn't intend it to be. So I think it's a great idea. Does anybody else have any? Mayor Arnold? No?
I agree.
Okay.
I just think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Right? Perfect. So everybody's okay moving that forward?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. Next up is to discuss the draft personnel manual. You'll see that there is an entire manual included in your packet. That's, of course, a lot for us to discuss here tonight.
We're going to have a quiz on it, is that right?
Kyle, did you want to give like a brief overview?
Sure. I thought I'd take this opportunity to read each page in depth, starting on page, no.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. So this is 94 pages. It, as described in the memo, this is clearly something that's going to take some time and deliberation. It's up to the committee of the whole, really, how they want to proceed with this, but I do believe either establishing a work session for the committee of the whole or an ad hoc or some other group to work through a lot of these issues would be appropriate. This is sort of a combination of our existing language that was in the manual, some changes, staff revisions, some language from our labor attorney, as well as a review of a bunch of other municipalities and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities manuals that they have out there. So there's several areas that I think when we do get to the more in-depth discussion that we should talk about. There's some holidays that there's specific situations on how employees, how we recognize holidays for employees. The carryover vacation was a theme that came up over time as a recurring theme, and that's one that has been a discussion for the past 2 years. Flex time for salaried employees, we just talked about that late last year. The sick time accrual and conversion, those are some items that I think need some thought, but there are different ways we can address that. The leave structure, whether you go to more of a PTO setup, or if you allot vacation or accrue vacation, or you award it after the year. How the manual gets implemented in specific departments. I know one of the comments that was made was there was some concern about how the manual is applied in certain departments because they may have different start hours or different work practices because the work is very different from City Hall to Public Works to the Aquatic Center. So that would be something to focus on. And then the council itself may want to look at the benefits we currently offer, and if there's changes or additions or subtractions to those benefits. I know Alder Albright has suggested that we kind of get with the times and get a little bit more modern in our approach to benefits, and maybe the more traditional benefits are still important, but that there's newer benefits that we should be considering. So also right after the memo, I do have a chart of the comments that were submitted regarding this, and basically it's word for most of them as far as what the comments were. Not all of them were incorporated in here, but I did want to share them so that you're aware of the feedback. Other than that, I'll leave it open for questions or determining the process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. So what does the council think? Would you prefer a special session for all of us to meet together, or for a smaller group, like an ad hoc?
So I would be up for either. I just know that we need to work on this as a small group, but with that being said, I asked about that committee or the RFP doing a survey with employees, because I think it might be important that we know what employees think are important as far as benefits. So I'm almost wondering, I don't know what their time frame is, but I'm almost wondering if maybe we couldn't table it for a couple weeks or a month or whatever. Because for me, I'm, being closer to retirement than, say, somebody that's in their 20s, I might be more towards that older person that wants, certain benefits, versus somebody that's in their 20s, their hourly base wage might be what's most important to them.
Right.
Versus insurance or whatever.
Is that information that would come in the study?
They're going to evaluate compensation, and I think it would be a pretty simple part of the interview process to talk about the specific compensation in the terms of benefits. There's also been some information and surveys by either Carlson Detman or the League of Municipalities about different benefits that different municipalities are offering, and I think we can incorporate that as well. But compensation is sort of a global look, and I think if we're going to change one aspect, we want to look at the others just to make sure that we're kind of creating a balanced approach.
Right. I don't think, if we find that people are more interested in a wage versus, fancy benefits, we're going to want to incorporate that versus, sick time and whatever.
So we could maybe be drafting the new personnel manual perhaps a few months early in this situation. Otherwise, we might have to redraft it, or it'd probably be small alterations post, but I can definitely see so their study is supposed to take 4 to 5 months. I don't know exactly when that's starting, but we'd probably be looking the end of the year then for this to be coming back.
Yeah, and I know this is some heavy lifting. They are planning on starting even this week as far as a kickoff meeting to kind of start getting the ducks in a row about how they're going to specifically roll this out and what their benchmarks are. But there are things we could work on that are non-compensation related or non-benefit related, I should say. Like the holidays, the overtime. So it might be beneficial if there is going to be a subgroup to establish it now and maybe have some preliminary meetings, but it can always take the pace it needs to take because I think it's going to be a long process to do it well.
Yeah, I think so. If we want it to be efficient 20 years from now, we need to do it right.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there any other thoughts? Alder Reed?
No, I was just kind of going the opposite way and wondering if it would be too much confusion to have a personnel manual that we put in, in 2 months after having a meeting ourselves and sending out anonymous online questionnaire for the employees to fill out, and then having a new personnel manual for 2023. Because it's going to be a while before we get all the information from the study in and we've had time to digest. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to, well, that's why I'm saying end of year. Like, if it takes them 4 to 5 months, and then we're looking at that, and then getting the information back and learning from it, it would be pushing it off quite a bit in the future. It would probably be realistically 2023. Let's not kid ourselves. Like, it's reality, and Alder Reed's right. So are you more for getting this done now, or just waiting entirely until the study's done?
I suppose I'm feeling somewhat impatient, but that might not be a good reason to make the changes now.
Do you have any thoughts, Mayor Arnold?
Well, I guess I'd sort of, Kyle, you've been through this before, right?
Yeah, and they do sort of have their own life depending on how outdated they are. This one is relatively outdated, about 9 years or so.
Okay. So do you have an opinion you wanted to express about the way to go here?
I think there's a lot of heavy lifting that's going to go into this. So I think if we just take a few months off, we're going to have a lot of work remaining. Mm-hmm. So I think having preliminary meetings and having the committee itself determine when they've kind of reached a point where they need to stop and wait for more information. But I think we should keep it somewhat moving because I think there are a lot of, even just the language, I was reading some of it today, and there's 28,000 words or so, and I noticed that in the copy and paste, some of the words got mixed up, and we used manager instead of administrator and things like that. So there's just a lot of review that'll have to go in. Each page will have to be touched. So
right, yeah, and that makes sense. So I would agree. Getting started on it, and there's plenty in it that we can take care of long before we have more information on it. So would the council prefer like a subcommittee or for special meetings of the council? I personally, in this scenario, especially prior to the study being done, I think a subcommittee would be more appropriate in my opinion, but that's up to council.
I agree. I think that makes sense. And then maybe bring more people in when we're closer.
Yeah, I like that.
Alder Rolke?
I agree.
Mayor Arnold?
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Right away.
Okay. All right. Then with that, I suppose we'll have to establish a subcommittee. Are there anyone up here? I assume Alder Albright wants to be on that committee. Alder
also
Motive?
like to.
Oh, Alder Rolke?
I would as well. I don't know
Okay.
how many we can have.
we could really, depending on how many we have, I think we're probably going to announce it as a public meeting anyways, at least post it. And, the meetings would be open to the public and to employees to come and listen to the discussion. So it doesn't really matter. We'll post it. So.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
So Alder Rolke, Albright, Alder Motive? I think that's a healthy subcommittee because then like Alder Reed, the mayor, and I can always join in at times as well, especially if like you guys are discussing something and think that, especially if it's a publicly noticed meeting anyway, we can always join in when needed. That makes sense.
Yep.
And I think you three are probably the more knowledgeable in these areas, so it's the best people to start with.
Will be the staff member involved.
Okay, well, perfect. Does everyone feel comfortable with the direction we're headed on that for now?
Yep.
Awesome. Then next up is to discuss the draft capital equipment plan, and Kyle will go over a little bit of that with us too.
All right, thank you. So yes, you have the proposed 5-year capital equipment plan for non-utility operations. There's also some additional, longer range up to 20 years as we kind of look at the longer effect. It's a pretty simple plan, but a lot actually goes into it, and the beauty of this 5-year plan is that you know 3 things that I think make an actual plan is that you know what you're going to purchase, when you're going to do it, and most importantly, how you're going to pay for it, because these are easy to come up with lists of equipment that you want to buy, but until you pair all of that information together, it's not really a plan. It's an aggressive plan, but it's also sort of a long-term plan to try to start moving us in the direction of becoming more current on our equipment. the equipment we're looking at in the next 5 years is often more than 20 years old. I think the oldest is the loader from 1988, I believe. Actually, it's the backhoe from 1988. And so as we've kind of looked at our equipment over time, we've deferred a lot of these expenses, and it's really catching up with us in the age of the equipment, the overall condition of it, how often they're out of service, and also how expensive the repairs are getting for these vehicles. And sometimes we're scrambling, especially in the supply chain, to even find parts, and might sit with something out of service for a while. So there's the 20-year plan in there. That's not really what I want to focus on. It's the 5-year plan. I'm not going to kind of review each of the purchases in there, and this isn't actually allocating any money. This is really looking for approval so that we would incorporate this in the budget process in this next year. It's, for the first time probably ever, really consistently funding capital improvements in the capital fund. In the first year, $100,000, and in future years, more than $200,000 each year of funding to accommodate this. And you'll see some years there's a surplus, other years there's a deficit. In the long term, what we're trying to do is maintain an even and consistent contribution so that we don't have problems with our expenditure restraint payments. So keeping that consistent will help with that, and then we'll build up fund balance, and then we'll sometimes spend it down depending on the kind of the ebb and flow of equipment. So I guess I'm looking in case there's any questions, or if there's some comfort level here. If we want to dive into more of the details, this one could also be something that gets a lot more in-depth and detailed, and could be part of a separate work session or brought back during the budget deliberations.
So have we thought about, can we lease any equipment and pay lease payments for a number of years, and then have some kind of residual value and put it towards a new piece of equipment?
Yeah, leasing is an option. You know, those terms are variable. If there's the ebb and flow of funding, that's going to be the issue, because if you're spending $50,000 one year and not the next, but then the third year you're spending $50,000, that does mess with your expenditure restraint. But there are ways to do that, and you could, lease all of your equipment or a substantial portion of it. It's just something you, I think, want to incorporate in more of a long-term plan, and we haven't moved in that direction at this point.
Right. So when I met with Jerry, and I see that he's on, he was talking about the amount of money that we spend when our equipment is super old. And I can't remember if he was talking about something that was 20 years old or what, but he's like, the money that we put into it in the later part of life, to extend its life was a lot of money compared to like if we leased it or if we traded stuff in on a more timely basis.
Yeah, you just have to have the money to pay for it. And that ultimately is where we haven't really come up with a solid plan over time, and that's what this hopefully establishes. It's easy to say that spending $10,000 on repairs was a waste of money, but if you don't have the $180,000 to replace the backhoe, it doesn't matter. So this is hoping to get us into a situation where we can, on a regular basis, improve our capital expenditures, again, making a commitment that hasn't been made before. And I think in the long term, we're going to keep clawing back. It's going to take a while. We didn't get here overnight, and I think a lot of this was deferred because there wasn't the money. And so now we have to kind of, on a slow basis, crawl back out of this hole that has been created over the years based on funding limitations. So there are different ways to go about it, but I'm trying to do something that's sustainable, because ultimately, when we look at this, this is only one component of all the capital plans. I know we've been talking about capital building plans. We have to build in some capital project plans for roads, and all of that's going to take money. So there's more problems than money to solve right now. And so this is sort of our first kick at trying to get a solid plan and start getting out of this problem.
Thank you, Kyle. Anybody else? Go ahead, Jane.
Oh, I'm just so beyond excited to see the plan for putting together a plan for 5 years worth of equipment. This is so refreshing and needed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Reed. I agree completely. I think this is wonderful to be looking at right now. And like Kyle mentioned, like this is only the first step of it. Like this, we'll have to develop the project plan and building plan, everything else as well. But I think it looks great. Is everybody comfortable moving forward at this moment? Did you want?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then we'll move that forward to the next regular meeting and hopefully be talking about our project plan and building plan in the very near future. Thank you so much, Kyle. Let's see here. Oh, and then next up is item number 10, to convene to a closed session per 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically annual administrator review. With that, I'll take a motion to convene to closed session.
Alder Motif will make a motion to convene to closed session.
Alder Albright can second that.
I have a motion from Alder Motif and a second from Alder Albright. All those in favor? Or wait, we roll call, sorry. Ahead of myself. Thank you, Pat.
Arnold?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Gray?
Aye.
Motif?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Roki?
Aye.
Albright?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect. We are in closed session. We will not be coming back to the air to take any action. So for all of those watching at home, thank you very much and have a great night.